Well, my name is Regina Neville, and I've lived in Edina now almost 25 years, and it is a city of choice for my husband and for me. We both grew up in Iowa, we met in Iowa, and we've had the opportunity to live in several different places, including Connecticut, North Carolina, and then 10 years in San Francisco. We both had good jobs and our kids were starting school, but we missed the Midwest and we wanted the kids to be closer to their grandparents. So we looked at cities in the Midwest, and for lots of reasons, Edina stood out. It's close to an airport, which my husband needed for travel. The schools are great. It's on the southern side of this city, so easier to get to Iowa. And it just seemed like a great community. So we've never looked back. Best decision we've made. I'm still growing, I'm still learning. And growing up in Iowa, my community was homogenous, mostly white, primarily Protestant and Catholic, so mostly a Christian community. And diversity is something that we talked about, but the terms are a little bit different. Were you of German or Irish origin? And for my grandparents, they were German-Irish, so they had to choose a different church, one that spoke English and didn't have Mass in German. So that was my upbringing, that even as a little kid, race inequity was not something we talked about in our community. It wasn't that it was not recognized, because I think everybody was aware, but it wasn't something that there was a conscious effort to discuss. When there was what I now know were microaggressions, I did not know that as a child, but when that came up, what I'm grateful for is there was something inside me that made me feel uncomfortable. It was like a switch or a jerk. It's like, did I really hear that? First questioning. Did it sound like what I think it sounded like? And one specific example, when I was probably elementary school, was watching a basketball game on television with a lot of family members. I think it was a high school tournament. And there were Iowa teams playing students, in this case from Waterloo, Iowa, which is a more diverse community. One of my family members talked about the dark skin of everyone on the court who was from Waterloo, and phrased it in a way that I found very jarring. And I wasn't used to being around people who didn't have white skin, certainly was aware of it, but hearing the term, hearing it called out. Now, fortunately, it wasn't as derogatory as some terms that can be used, but definitely a recognition. There's a difference. Something is not the same, and it's not about the skill in basketball. So that was jarring. And then many years later in college, I had the opportunity just to study for a while in New Jersey, much more diverse school than where I was attending in Iowa. And when some friends of mine came to see the production, what I didn't expect, but what was clear is some of them were extremely uncomfortable. And this was the 1980s. The idea of interracial relationships was not new to the United States by any means, but recognizing that people who I thought we had the opportunity for an education to meet many other people, how uncomfortable that made some people feel. I didn't know everything about where we had come from as a country, certainly didn't know where we were going, but that idea of being colorblind, it felt like that was like, okay, now I know, and this is an answer. We were looking for an answer and thought that might be it. In the late 80s, conversations between Robert Brustein, who was the artistic director of American Repertory Theater, and August Wilson, who has some St. Paul roots and nationally known playwright, had a conversation about colorblind casting. Can we just put any role in a play, can we cast it with a performer of, regardless of the color of their skin? It was a tense debate, and I remember having been taught that colorblind casting was the right way to look at casting. And in hindsight, being able to recognize that it is a way, there is not a right way, and there are so many other factors to consider. And that doesn't necessarily make it equal. So just because it is a different way of doing things than what has been done before, specifically in theater arts, but also with a lot of athletics, staffing the boardroom and hiring people, hiring practice, it was part of a journey, and we needed to come farther. We were not progressing, in some cases at all, communally. I was not asking enough questions of myself. I was not intentional enough with my learning and my unlearning. And the anti-racism collective conversations allowed for one, a safe space to share and collectively try to do better. If we know better, we do better. And we can't do much if we really don't know. And we remain ignorant and unable to move forward if we have no idea that some of the things I might do might be a microaggression, and I'm not aware of that. I need to be made aware of that. And it's uncomfortable. And I have to go through the discomfort. I can't just put it aside and say, well, I'm going to deflect and go another direction, because I won't move forward. Having the opportunity to travel and to live for extended periods of time in different parts of the country has been great, mostly through school and work. Being able to live in places where I get to meet people from many different parts of the world and many different cultural backgrounds. And in Minnesota, very much focused on education and governance. So looking at policy, looking at how do we support all of our students and all of our staff so that everyone has the opportunity to succeed, and then recognizing that our systems aren't set up to let everybody succeed or to support that kind of success. Needing to take that deep dive into, one, just learning what I had not been aware of before, of policies that we have on the books or that might have unfortunately still been as part of our systems. Looking at our governmental systems, just looking at what happened and getting to know people, and then asking them, what makes a difference? What makes you feel welcome? How do you feel at home? That's been tremendously helpful. Edina is willing to ask hard questions. I will say that from our city council, they are willing to ask the questions and recognize that there may not be answers and that a lot of the conversation is difficult because of the development of the anti-racism collective. And it's not the only organization in our community that is asking these kinds of questions. It's one that is partnering with EAAA, representing Asian voices. We need to have Indigenous voices. We need to have voices of people with white skin. There is no standing still. Being silent is not neutral. So given that, I appreciate the fact that there's a choice with many people in the community to try to do better. I am so impressed with young people because, one, they've had the opportunity for conversation that I didn't have growing up. So to see that difference, one, how comfortable they are with conversation, how comfortable they are with each other, and they're willing to call things out. I'm learning from them, and I feel like the future is in good hands.